Free Range Texan Podcast.
Clear worldwide transmission. Present detour. The road of everyday life. Campfire.
For the Free Range Texan Podcast.
With your host, Michael Shawn.
This show is not made in New York City. And it's not made in Hollywood. Instead, our intrepid crew has assembled at the well-appointed Studio A at the A-Team PR Studios in a place most of you would refer to as Out Yonder. Now, let me be clear about this. This is the Free Range Texan Podcast known as Episode 39, creating tracks of a digital nature. Glad our listeners are joining us for this edition. No, not you, Foxy. I mean, we're glad you're here, Foxy, but I was referring to our growing number of listeners and friends saddling up with us here at the Free Range Texan. Singer-songwriter George Ensle is our guest this time out, so we'll all be rubbing shoulders with a genuine, legendary Texas music performer. And here's some of his latest mighty fine creations. Episode 39 winds up further down the trail at Michael Shawn's Campfire, where tales will be told, and perhaps some traveling through time can take you places that only a good campfire can. So, I expect we ought to saddle up and get ready to ride. Skimming across the surface of the World Wide Web comes an intrepid podcast for those rolling on roads less traveled. Heroes and Heroines File, the Free Range Talent File, the Unexplained File, Ain't Love Grand File, the Free Range Texan News Network, Michael Shawn's Campfire, worldwide digital stereo, coming right out of God's country. You're riding with the Free Range Texan, the best little podcast in Texas. And then there was the West Texas farmer who decided it was time for a brand new pickup. Well, he went to town and showed up at his local dealership, where he promptly picked out the one he wanted. There was the price on the window, but doggone it, the extras. The price began to climb. He bought the truck and he took it home. A while after selling him a new pickup, the auto dealer called the farmer about buying a cow. The farmer said the cow would be about $500. Well, the dealer thought that's a great price and arrived at the farm to find the following tacked to the wall of the barn. Basic cow, $499.95. Extra stomachs, $79.25 each. Two-tone exterior, $142.10. Deluxe dual horns, $59.25. Produce storage compartments, $126.50. 4-spigot high-output drain system, $149.20. Heavy-duty hay chopper, $189.60. Automatic fly swatter, $88.50. Genuine cowhide upholstery, $179.90. Automatic fertilizer attachment, $339.40. 4x4 traction drive assembly, $884.16. Farmer adjustment, $300. Pre-delivery wash and comb, $69.80. Delivery, $35.75. Total price, including options, $3,143.36. We'll take a check. It's time now for another segment of the Free Range Talent File. Brought to you by A-Team PR, bringing a host of creative media production and public relations services to our exclusive list of clients. Maybe you could hire the A-Team. And now, here's the next segment of the Free Range Talent File. Our guest, George Ensle, singer-songwriter. He's celebrating 50 years as a performing songwriter, and in February of 2017 was inducted into the Houston Folk Music Archives at Rice University. He's won numerous songwriting awards, been awarded government grants to teach children through the Artist in Schools program, and released albums and CDs in U.S. and Europe, and the list goes on and on. George Ensle, welcome to the Free Range Texan podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be with you.
You know, you come highly recommended from a number of singer-songwriters that I have been visiting with, and I brought up your name. Son of a gun, they know who you are, man.
Well, that's a blessing.
You know, I was told that you were a producer on Stan Troy's latest album, Deluxe Cafe.
Yes, sir. I did produce that project.
I'll tell you why I brought that up right off the bat. Stan Troy has been on our podcast a couple of times, and now this is the truth, what I'm about to tell you. We did not do an exceptional amount of advanced publicity or a lot of the things that sometimes we do on our podcast, but Stan Troy's appearance on the Free Range Texan both times is, to this date, still most amount of downloads of any Free Range Texan podcast that we have ever produced. And Stan Troy holds that distinction. And when he came back a second time, the same thing happened again. You produced his album, Deluxe Cafe, and both times he was talking about songs off of Deluxe Cafe, and we got to feature some of those. So you must be a pretty good producer.
I'm glad you liked the project. We had some of the best Austin All-Stars playing on it, and Stan had some great little collection of tunes, and it was kind of a good little concept, and so it worked out really well.
You have had 50 years as a singer and songwriter. Not to make you sound ancient, dear brother, but you have seen some stuff up and down the road. You have worked with lots of other singer and songwriters. Tell us about some of the other talent you have worked with over the years.
Well, I started out in Houston in the folk music coffeehouse club scene, and the first artist I think I saw was Townes Van Zandt back when I was a teenager.
Wow.
I was really knocked out by the power of his delivery and his songs, of course. Guy Clark was living upstairs at the Sand Mountain Coffee House at that time.
Wow.
And he was making a living working on Volkswagens and Martin guitars. And subsequently, when I came to Austin, fell in with Nancy Griffith, Lindsay Hazley, and Alan Damron, Tim Henderson, Terry Taylor.
Well, that's a real who's who.
It was a very inspiring club downtown across the street from the police station and next door to the George Hotel, the transient hotel there, where Guy Clark met the guy he wrote Let Him Roll about, Sinbad. I got into the college circuit pretty early on. We started playing the coffee houses at colleges, and that was very enjoyable.
Now would probably be a good time for us to point out that later in this podcast, we're going to play one of your songs. It's a Texas Thing. Possibly be able to dedicate that to some of our friends over across the sea there in Europe who are big Texas music listeners. Also, we want to tell the folks that you have a new release that you are releasing for air on broadcast stations. It's called All I Need. That song has a video, and if you will go to our blog at freerangetexan.net and just click on the blog there's an article about George, and you can see pictures of George, and his video is there. So you can play his video from his newest song there on our blog at freerangetexan.net. George, it says here, and I would like for you to explain this, that you see yourself as a song painter. How does that work?
Coming out of the folk tradition that I was really involved with and really grew up with, there's always a story. Mm-hmm. I just really gravitated toward that format for songwriting. I always liked the imagery of people and places.
Yes.
And felt the power of the emotional message that could be told. I gravitated toward that, and someone coined that moniker song painter at some point, and it kind of stuck, painting pictures and telling stories.
Well, and likely so, your song, All I Need, that we're putting on our blog there, the music video is a really good example of what you're talking about. George, what is the backstory on It's a Texas Thing?
Well,
excuse me, George. I said thing, didn't I? The actual word is thang.
Thang. It's a novelty song, of course, and I was in a swing mood, which I thought would be the appropriate dialect or idiom for singing a song about Texas, all the neat things in Texas, and I thought, we need a national anthem just in case.
Amen, brother.
We can secede, as you well know. We're one of the only states that can secede from this union here. It's been proposed by, as you know, a number of people that we do.
Yes, sir.
Take our ball and go home. But I wrote all the cool things about Texas down and put them in a song, and it was an hour and a half long. So I had
just too cool for school, man.
In Texas, right? Everything is bigger. And so I had to pare it down, and I hope I touched on, the more meaningful aspects of Texanism. It's funny, when you go overseas, people tell me that if they see the state of Texas, the shape of the state of Texas is so unique and so iconic, they recognize it worldwide. So that's kind of where the song came from. It's a novelty song, upbeat, and I thought, I like a bit of wit and wisdom because I really feel like we're in the healing business as musicians, and that what we do should touch people in a therapeutic manner, and whether it be through some poignant portrait of someone or whether or not it's through just a downright silly giggle. That's where I come from with what I do and how I approach music. People need to be able to laugh.
All right, I suggest now that we go ahead and display here on our podcast some official George Ensle therapy. And George, let me tell you, from the bottom of my heart, it is such a pleasure to visit with you. And it's like we were talking about before we went on. You're the type of guy, if you live down the road, just stop by your place and sit on the front porch a while. It would be delightful, sir.
Yeah.
So, everybody, here it is, George Ensle. It's a Texas Thing on the Free Range Texan podcast.
Well, we've howdy to strangers, tip our hats and say yes, ma'am. Try to be extra neighborly every chance we can. So I'll share the wealth and beauty that you may partake of the many wonderments here in the Lone Star State. Now when God bless Texas, well, he gave us a clear blue sky, with clouds just made for daydreaming, slowly floating by. He let our nights with stars big and bright, just made for wishing on. It's a state of mind you can't find till you go to old San Antonio, 'cause it's a Texas thing. I want y'all to know what it's like living in paradise and how we come by our bragging rights. It's a Texas thing. Well, it's as good as it gets. Ever wonder why you ain't a Texan yet? You gotta roam down home cooking, got your great steaks, chicken fried, Tex-Mex plate that'll set you straight with that bluebell on the side. And we got our own brand of music made for holding your baby tight in an old-time sawdust dance hall, bathed in Luckenbach moonlight. It's a Texas thing. I want y'all to know what it's like living in paradise and how we come by our bragging rights. It's a Texas thing. Well, it's as good as it gets. Ever wonder why you ain't a Texan yet? Well, it's a whole nother country. One thing I never did get clear: why did we join the Union? We got all we need right here. It's a Texas thing. I could go on and on about them painted sunsets on the Panhandle Plains and that sweet hill country rain. The wind in big thicket trees and Padre Island and a Gulf Coast breeze. It's new Luke Casey's and old straw hats. It's King Ranch pickups and old Cadillacs. It's a cowgirl on a cutting horse in the field of blue bonnets. And of course, longhorns and jackalopes. Man, everything's bigger once you go, you'll know. It's a Texas thing, and I'll be willing to bet you'll wonder why you ain't a Texan yet.
You've been listening to the Free Range Talent File. If you'd like more information about our guest, just go to our website at freerangetexan.net. Also, submissions to be interviewed on the Free Range Talent File should be sent to our website at freerangetexan.net.
Digital recording device will travel.
Hi, this is Michael Shawn. I guess you've heard what people are saying about my campfire.
Well, there's one thing you can count on. Anything can happen on Michael Shawn's Campfire, and usually does.
As you listen to the Free Range Texan podcast.
Hello, this is Michael Shawn. Welcome to our campfire. Make yourself comfortable. This is a Civil War story about a young soldier from a wealthy Virginia family who elects to fight for the Union. Private Carter finds himself posted on sentry duty, guarding a valley where 5 regiments of Union soldiers are hunkered down and hiding. Carter's orders are to prevent a rebel scout from discovering their whereabouts. It was a sunny afternoon in autumn in the year 1861. Carter laid by the side of the road in a group of bushes in West Virginia. He was asleep at his post of duty. If detected, he would be dead. Had he been awake, he would have commanded a view not only of a short portion of the road, but an entire profile of the cliff below it and the valley beyond. The country was wooded everywhere except at the bottom of the valley, where 1,000 feet below there was a small natural meadow. The waters of a stream ran lazily through the meadow. No country is so wild and difficult, but men will make it a theater of war. It was a place that as little as 50 men posted at the exits might have starved an army into submission. Nonetheless, 5 regiments of Federal infantry concealed themselves there. They had marched all the previous day and night and were resting. At nightfall, they would take to the road again, climbed the place where their unfaithful sentinel now slept, and ascending the other slope of the ridge, fall upon the camp of the enemy at about midnight. Their hope was that of surprise. The sleeping sentinel was a young Virginian named Carter. He was the son of wealthy parents. His home was only but a few miles from where he now lay. One morning, he had risen from the breakfast table and said quietly, "Father, a Union regiment has arrived at Grafton. I'm going to join it." The father looked at his son in a moment of silence, then replied, "Well, go, sir. And whatever may occur, do what you conceive to be your duty. Virginia, to which you are a traitor, must get on without you. Should we both live to the end of the war, we'll speak further of this matter. Your mother is in most critical condition. At best, she cannot be with us longer than a few weeks. It would be better not to disturb her." So Carter left the home of his childhood to go soldiering. Nevertheless, fatigue had been stronger than resolution, and he had fallen asleep. Then, without movement, without a sound, in the profound silence, he quickly raised his forehead from his arm and looked, instinctively closing his right hand about the stock of his rifle. On a cliff, on the extreme edge of the Caprock Ridge, a sharply outlined, against the sky figure of a man set the figure of a horse. The rider's face turned away, looking across the forest. The gray uniform harmonized with its aerial background. A carbine lay across his saddle, kept in place by the rider's right hand grasping the grip. The rider's left hand held the bridle rein. Carter slowly brought up the rifle against his cheek, cautiously pushing the barrel forward through the bushes, cocked the piece, glancing through the sights, covered a vital spot on the horseman's chest. A touch upon the trigger, and all would have been well with Carter. But in that instant, the horseman turned his head and looked in the direction of Carter's concealed position. He seemed to look into his face, into his eyes, into his brave, compassionate heart. Carter grew pale. He shook in every limb. He turned faint. His hand fell away from his weapon. His head dropped until his face rested in the leaves. Not for long, though. In another moment, his face raised. His hands resumed their places on the rifle. His forefinger sought the trigger. Mind, heart, eyes were clear. He could not hope to capture that enemy. To alarm him would but send him back dashing to his camp with his fatal news. The duty of the soldier was plain. The man must be shot. But no, there is hope. He may have discovered nothing. Perhaps he's just admiring the landscape. If permitted, he may turn and ride carelessly away in the direction from whence he came. Carter turned his head and looked through the deeps of the air downward. He saw, creeping across the green meadow, a line of blue-uniformed men and horses. Some foolish commander had permitted the Union soldiers to water their beasts in the open, in plain view of a dozen summits. Carter withdrew his eyes from the valley and fixed them again upon the man and the horse in the sky. And again, it was through the sights of his rifle. But this time, his aim was at the horse. In his memory, as if it were a divine mandate, rang the words that his father had said at his parting. "Whatever may occur, do what you conceive to be your duty." Carter was calm now. Not a tremor affected any muscle in his body. His breathing still suspended in the act of taking aim in regular, slow, and practiced movement. Duty had conquered. He fired. After firing his shot, Private Carter reloaded the rifle and resumed his watch. 10 minutes had hardly passed when a federal sergeant crept cautiously to him on his hands and knees. "Did you fire?" the sergeant whispered. "Yes." "At what?" "A horse. It was standing on yonder rock, pretty far out. You see, it's no longer there. It went over the cliff." "See here, Carter," the sergeant said. "I order you to report. Was there anybody on the horse?" Carter said, "Yes." "Well?" "My father." The sergeant rose to his feet and walked away. "Good God," he said. I'm Michael Shawn. Thanks for joining us at our campfire. Adios, my friends. Hey, I want to ask y'all something. Would you be so kind as to share our podcast? Neighbors, friends, fishing buddies, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. And just want to say thank you to those ladies from Seymour, Texas, who sent us that box of homemade cookies. However, in the spirit of full disclosure, some of our crew left the cookies open on the table, which normally would not be a problem when we all left the room. All of us except Foxy. our head of security. Those must have really been great cookies. Foxy, go get in the pickup. Well, thanks everybody for riding along. See you next time on the Free Range Texan Podcast. Take 'em home, sweetie pie.
Thank y'all for listening to the Free Range Texan Podcast, produced at A-Team PR Studios out yonder in West Texas, with our host, who's been voted the hardest working man in podcasting, Michael Shawn. Feedback or submissions to our program can be submitted on our website, freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. This is Sweetie Pie on behalf of Michael, Shawn, and the crew here in Studio A, where we're all looking forward to spending time with you on our next bi-weekly episode of the Free Range Texan Podcast. Y'all come back now, you hear?
An A-Team PR production. End transmission.